talk on this show about the secret sauce for entrepreneurs. Like, what do they use to make their dreams a reality? You know, we've talked about everything from habit building to having the right mindset to having the right tools. And even we've talked to people who train and are world-class athletes and what they do to compete. But what if there was something bigger that we could all connect to? You know, something inside of us that we could all harness. And today's guest is a successful entrepreneur who found it within himself, and he's here to show how we can use the exact same thing in our own lives. So today we have Chad Michael Hardy. He's an entrepreneur, and he's the author of Law of Zero. And the Law of Zero is the journey to awakening your authentic self, unlocking your infinite power, and taking control of your life. It's great. I just like the title, let alone the whole book, but we'll talk more about that. You know, Chad has a proven track record of building people up, bringing people together, producing a community, doing corporate events. He does all kinds of things, and I'm sure he'll tell us about it. Award-winning entrepreneur, he founded the flourishing team building company, Adventure Games, Inc. Since he discovered the Law of Zero, Chad has challenged the multitude of personal challenges and triumphs in his own life to helping other people find their authentic joy and true self. So today he's not just an entrepreneur, but he's an inspirational figure. And I love, again, all the concept of this book. So Chad, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be good. Now, you have quite a story. So this is going to be my favorite part of this podcast, I think. Chad, tell us your story. How did you get here?
Oh, man. Well, I could just say read my book because I really don't leave any stone unturned.
We'll do a lot of promo later. I'll pump it later.
But I mean, kind of, you know, Steve Jobs famously said, you know, if we can connect the dots backwards, you know, we really can. I'm paraphrasing, but if we can connect the dots backwards, we can really see how they all connected to get us where we are today. And so if I look back at my life to where I am now and like where it all started, you know, first of all, it's a fantastical journey. Right. But most importantly, it all started with awareness. There was a little bit of awareness that happened at some point in my life when I realized that I was just out of alignment, and I was living a life that really wasn't mine. I was living under this kind of pretense of how life is supposed to be, and it just wasn't working for me. And so I had to really take ownership of what the life that was intended for me, and release the things that were out of alignment so I could receive my authentic truth. Right. And then I just engaged my power, and here I am. You know, I've discovered this kind of formula that works. Has worked for me, and it works for anybody that's actually done the work.
I know. I like it. Now, once again, going back to your story, you were excommunicated from the Mormon church all around a calendar. It made headlines. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So this is one of those things where I debated, how do I skirt around this story without bringing it back up? And everyone's like, well, that is your story.
What do you mean? That is the story. Yeah.
And it is the story for a lot of people.
And it was a lot to overcome, I would imagine.
Yeah. So to understand to explain what the calendar was, we've all seen like the New York firefighter beefcake calendars. This is nothing new. This is not a groundbreaking concept. But what was groundbreaking is I thought, what if Mormon missionaries did something like this? Because I was raised Mormon, and I was a missionary. I did the whole 2-year thing on my bicycle, and that we were men in uniform. And I thought, what if? But this idea came from many, many years of trauma. Right. And the most recent trauma that actually pushed me to do this was I was living in southern Utah in a beautiful community called St. George, and I pretty much got small towned. I had started this street fair on the downtown Main Street. It was a Thursday night thing. It was doing really well, and a lot of the people who've been in this community for many, many generations didn't like that this outside person was coming in doing this. And they pretty much went on a witch hunt, got pictures off my social media, went to city council, said pretty much said we don't need his kind in our town, and they took away my business license, and I was left with no business. And so in my book, I talk about how I pulled myself out of this, and looking back, it was my first touch point, what I call the law of zero. But moving fast forward, I got myself out of that situation. I moved to Las Vegas. I started my team building company. Everything was going great, but I would still wake up every day with this gnawing anger. Like, I want to get revenge on these people.
Right. I can see it. Most people would.
Right. And how I've always dealt with my trauma is humor. And a lot of people do. A lot of comedians that are the funniest usually have the most amount of trauma. And I had this idea, presented it to a friend. He was like, I'll pay for it. That sounds like a great investment. And next thing you know, we did this calendar, and then it made international headlines. And then the church got pretty upset, as you could imagine. And they excommunicated me. And then they followed up, BYU, Brigham Young University, followed up by revoking my degree. So it was this whole drama, right? And looking back on it, I realized that I had to take ownership of the fact that I created all of this drama. No one like forced me to do this calendar. But when I really got authentic and real with myself, I realized that I did that calendar out of revenge. In the moment, I didn't think that's what I was doing. I thought I was doing something funny and fun, and I didn't realize just how much I was running hurt.
Right. Right. And so what, from that, what did you learn from it? What sort of made you go down this different path now?
Yeah, I realized that seeking revenge really only hurts yourself. When I look back at all the time and energy I spent on that project, how much it took away from what I really wanted to do, and that was to build people up and bring people together through my team building. And a lot of people, especially in Vegas, because that's where I was living and that's where the story was so massive, everybody thought that I was this famous calendar maker now and that I didn't do team building. And so it really did hurt my business. And it really set me back. I would probably say it set me back a good 5+ years.
Wow, 5? Jeez.
Yeah, at least, because I look at, I was doing did the calendar for 5 years, but that was, and all this time, every year I was getting new press, new media about it. And it really, when I look back on it, I was like, wow, what a big waste of time and energy. And it didn't even really make me any money. I mean, yeah, it made money, but it didn't make me
right. Certainly, what would be worth it to all that pain and hassle.
Oh, sure. I mean, it was fun to be on all the interviews. That was fun to have your 15 minutes of fame, but at what cost? And I realized that that's not what I wanted to be known for. In fact, professionally, I dropped my last name. I just go by my first and middle name for the longest time, because if you Google Chad Hardy, this is all you get, like massive news stories of this kind of naughty enterprise I was involved in. And so what did I learn from that? Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is I learned that it all was created from me. It was created from my trauma. It was created from my need to get revenge. And that's never going to really get you anywhere. I mean, the best thing you can always do is just release it and walk away. And that's what I should have done. And that's what I eventually did. And that's when I started.
Luckily.
Right. And that's when I started to see success, is when I left Vegas. I left the calendar business. I moved back to California. And everything started to just become magic again in my life.
Moving it forward. Mm-hmm. It's funny, I did a podcast just recently, and it was the lessons learned in life. And one of the lessons was that I got from my dad was never wrestle with a pig, because you both get dirty, but the pig likes it. And that sounds exactly like this story. Decided to wrestle with a pig, but the problem is that the pig likes it.
Oh, sure. And let me tell you, the little broken Chad and loved it too. I loved that. I got that there was that little payoff, that little zinger, like, I'll show you. But ultimately I was the loser in all of that.
But that led you to, the law of zero and that whole, thought process that you came up with it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, the law of zero and, where did it come from? How did you develop it? And what has been the benefit, not only to yourself, but the people that have followed it?
Sure. So after the whole drama happened with the church, the one big takeaway that I did learn being a part of the Mormon church was the concept of forgiveness. Right. And I had a really awesome experience happen to me in my life, which I won't talk about it now. It's something you can read about in the book, but I had this massive lessons learned about how powerful forgiveness is. So I started writing a book probably like 15 years ago about forgiveness, and I realized I wasn't ready to forgive. So I put those writings away. And one of my very dear friends, Quinn, who lives in Los Angeles, called me up out of the blue. This was like mid 2019. And he said, Chad, you've got to finish your book. And he and his friend, Yayoi, from their friends since college, drove down to Los Angeles, down to San Diego. So that's like a 2-hour drive, if you're not lucky and you hit traffic. Right. And just to sit at my dining room table and tell me that I've got to finish this book. I mean, it felt like a little divine. Like there's this is not just some happenstance conversation. Right. And we looked up the name of my book, which was called I Forgive, and it actually had been taken. Someone else wrote my book. And I said, well, at this point, and I still don't feel passionate about forgiveness. I feel like there's something bigger. What's bigger than forgiveness? So we kind of left the conversation open-ended, and they left, and I was kind of just meditating that night, and I had this kind of like voice in my head say, it's called the law of zero. I'm like, what's that?
That was the inspiration. Oh,
so I got up and I opened up Google like we all do, typed in law of zero, nothing. And I called Yayoi, she's Japanese, and I said, well, I know what I'm supposed to write about. It's called Law of Zero. And she says, oh, like the Enzo, which is the Japanese kind of handwritten circle, which means the nothingness, the void. So I thought, okay, there's my jumping off point. So I started looking into this concept and other ancient philosophies, religions, and everything points back to this concept of like nirvana, the nothingness, like in nothing is everything. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But as I started researching more and more, I started downloading more and more information from, I don't know, I joke and I say it was the aliens. I don't know where this information came from. It just, I think that's anything in our human world, right? It all comes from some sort of inspiration. Is it the aliens? What is it? I don't know. Something, right? It comes from somewhere. Well, I know where that somewhere is. It's this place called zero. So it is this completely neutral space where essentially energy comes from, like everything, our thoughts, creation, everything comes from what I call this place, zero. And it's also a state of being as well. We can align with this place and make it our state of being where we are completely untethered to everything. Like we don't have any attachments to anything. And this is kind of that goes back to that belief system of the Enzo, of nirvana. It's the reason why people meditate for hours and days on end to detach ourselves from everything. And so, but where's the power? Where's the strength in that? Well, if we're detached from everything, that means we're detached from our fears, our limitations, everything that we tell ourselves that are not true. We detach ourselves from that. And then once we're detached from everything, even like the wonderful things that we want, then once we're neutral, we can have a clear mind and a clear path to really go where we truly want to be. And so that, my friend, is zero in a nutshell. I know it's this kind of big concept because when you're talking that nothing is everything, it's like, well, how do you like whittle that down to a few words? And that's as best as I can do.
No, I think I also studied Taoism, so it's along those same lines. It's sort of, now how's it different? You hear of like law of attraction and that type of thing, and this sounds somewhat but different.
Sure. Honestly,
Maybe
that's
you can
my
contrast those.
Yeah, that's my favorite question. Is how does this relate to the law of attraction? Well, for those who don't know what the law of attraction is, it's this belief system that if you think good thoughts, good things come to you. If you think bad thoughts, bad things come to you. And so we can materialize things if we visualize them, which is, Oprah was really big with this, with creating vision boards. And now everybody I know has vision board parties every year. And I was really good at this too. Now, I talk a lot about this in my book about my grandfather, who was a champion in manifestation before like The Secret came out and all of these more modern books that helped us understand what the law of attraction is. Right. So I learned this from a very, very young age. And so this was nothing new. It was actually exciting to me that this is now a mainstream conversation we could have now. It wasn't just something that my grandfather and I would talk about. And so how does the law of attraction compare to the law of zero? Right. Well, I say that the law of attraction is just the tip of the iceberg, and law of zero is the entire iceberg.
It's everything.
It's everything. So I was really good at manifesting things. I manifested myself out of my sister and I out of a lake when we were stranded in the middle of a lake. We got ourselves out alive, which is a miracle. I talk about that in the book. I manifested myself out of financial ruin. I manifested myself into the place I want to live, the people that I want in my space. Really good at this. What I was really good at is watching it evaporate.
Right, and then go the other way. So that's where the
right. So I create this stuff. Why does it go away?
Right.
And then I realized that there's more to just creating if you want it to like stick around. And it's the stuff under the surface that we've got to look at. And it's the stuff under the surface that keeps us out of alignment with the things that we manifest. And over time, we can manifest that amazing career, that beautiful spouse, the beautiful children. But why do you still feel like incomplete and not whole? Because what's underneath, if it's not fixed, if we don't deal with it, it's going to creep up and it's going to spoil every lovely thing in your life.
Makes sense.
So I discovered there's 5 points of entry to...
I was just going to say, now, when I looked at your book, there's 5 points of access to a balanced life. So maybe that will bring it... How do you bring this real to our listeners? Like, what are these 5 access points?
So the ones on the top, I kind of think of it as like a 5-pointed star. And I'm going to name them off really quickly so that you just get them, and then we'll go into
upon them if we could.
Yeah, so the 5 points of entry are... find awareness, secure alignment, take ownership, release to receive, and engage your power. You probably didn't realize, but when I first started talking on this, I said all of those 5 things.
Yes.
Now you have to go back and re-listen.
I have to, now it's a little trick for our listeners.
Yeah, go back and re-listen. Find awareness, secure alignment, and engage your power. That is the law of attraction right there. So you have an awareness of what it is that you want. You get in alignment with it, whatever that is. If it's a career, if it's a new place, whatever you want in your life, you get in alignment with it, and then you go after it. You engage your power. The things that are under the surface that many of us are unwilling to take a look at is taking ownership.
Yeah,
and
ownership of things, good and bad.
Right. It's everything. You have to take ownership of your successes, your failures. You have to take ownership of your traumas. Now, that's the hardest thing right there. Many of us were traumatized as children because we were in a helpless state, which is why a lot of time our childhood traumas creep up into our adult life. And I always say, like, if you don't deal with your traumas, your relationships will.
Right.
So
eventually,
like
right?
That.
Eventually, yes.
So we have to take ownership of the fact that at one point in our life we were traumatized, and whatever that be, there's no hierarchy in suffering. So it could be something what somebody else would think is, well, you're traumatized over that, and then someone who's like, Look at the people living in Gaza or Israel, war-torn countries. I think of the trauma they're going through. It's all relative to whatever your life looks like.
Yeah, and what you think is trauma, not what someone else judges your trauma is to be.
Yeah, correct. So we just had to take ownership of the fact that's my life. That happened to me. Yeah, it sucked. I didn't want that to happen. That's horrible. Right. But it's mine to deal with. It's like if I come in and dump a bunch of trash on your yard and leave, well, am I going to come back and clean it up? No, you have to clean it up.
Right.
So taking ownership, because once you take ownership of everything in your life, then you have the power to do something about it.
Right. Let it go, deal with it, to your point. Yeah. Have a conversation.
Right. Exactly. So the next point would be to release it. You release it, which is where, if you want to, you can call this forgiveness, or, you can really call it whatever you want. But it's the idea of saying, okay, this no longer serves me anymore, and I'm going to release it. However, there's a lot of books out there that you can read that can give you some great tools on this. And then once you make room, get rid of that stuff, you can receive what it is that you want to get in alignment with, and then those things are going to stick around. And the more we learn to become really good at releasing, taking ownership, release, take ownership, release, it actually creates new neural pathways in your brain. And it will create new neural pathways around those trauma points. And this is actually science. I did brain training, and it completely changed my life. And it will create that new behavior will create new neural pathways where the old traumas will no longer have any power over you.
Interesting.
So it's all interesting stuff, right? And then if you can do these 5 points, so we can find awareness, and a lot of times finding awareness is finding our truth, because I don't know if you know this, but there's 2 kinds of truths in our world. We have absolute truth, which is we know the sun is going to rise in the east and it's going to set in the west.
Right. Yeah.
And
I think we know that. Yeah.
If it doesn't, well, then none of this matters anymore. Right.
We got bigger issues to deal with together.
Right. But and then we have these other, what I call lowercase truths, where are things that we believe are true, and we treat them just as true as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And these could be things like, I am unable to do this because of that. Okay.
Right. The limitations you put on yourself. Yeah.
Right. Fill in the blanks, and that's a limitation that you put on yourself. If you really want to break it down, our entire civilization is based on lowercase truths.
That's true. There is no reality. It's only what you believe is reality.
Right. And we look no further than the American political divide.
Yes.
and here's the kicker. Both sides are 100% right, and both sides are 100% wrong. It depends on what your capital T truth, or what you think is a capital T truth is. But everything in our human world is really a lowercase truth. Yeah, it's all made up by humans.
I think that's to that point, we manifest everything, right? There is no anything. This table is a table because we call it a table, but
it also is a table because somebody at one point had the idea from zero and created it.
Right, they took it from zero, and that's a really good point, and that's where the sort of law of zero. And you reminded me of a story when you were talking. I did a podcast about Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know if you saw his Netflix special. Was talking about his life, but he used to lie there on his little bed and think about him winning these bodybuilding contests while he was a teenager, and he would think about every move. And to your point, and then all the things that would stop him from doing that. And of course, we all know what happened. He ended up winning 6 times. And it's what you were saying. If you think and you believe, and you can really accomplish anything. So I was going to go, most of our audience are entrepreneurs. They're, starting businesses, and there's, massive amounts of challenges that you have when you're running your own business. There are obstacles to overcome. There's crisis of the day. I was late getting on this podcast because there's crisis of the day. So how does your, law of zero, how would this apply to entrepreneurs, and how would you give them advice if you have an entrepreneur coming to you and saying, hey, help me utilize these tools to get better at what I do?
Sure. Let's go through all 5 of them. All right. Yeah. So the first thing is you need to have awareness of what it is that you truly want. A lot of times when I meet other entrepreneurs, they're kind of like a jack of all trades. Now, I was this entrepreneur. I'm like, I can do this, I can do that. I can plan your wedding. I can do street fairs. I can do team building. I can whatever, right? The answer, yeah, I could do it. And then I had to get really clear on what it is that I was really, really good at, And my good friend Quinn, same guy who told me to write the book, gave me the best advice 20 years ago. He said, be good at one thing, an expert, and everybody will come to you for your expertise. And that resonated with me. And that's why when I finally stripped the calendar off, stripped doing people's weddings off, doing that, all these other little things, and just focused on team building, I became clear, this is all I want to do. And now I'm an expert, and everybody comes to me just for this one thing that I'm good at.
Right.
So that's number one. Have awareness of what you truly, truly want, and get crystal clear, and then get in alignment with it. So if you are wanting to start a new restaurant, but you are still working in accounting, you're going to have to let that accounting job go. So you need to position yourself.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
Right. So you need to get in alignment with that, you need to surround yourself with those experts in that field. All right. That's the second theme, alignment. And then you need to take ownership of the fact of everything in your life that you feel could be a limitation. So really get aware of what are your limiting beliefs. Write them down. Write a pros and cons list. Write down everything that could go right, and then write everything that could go wrong. And then if you look at both lists, and if you are A-okay with either scenarios happening, you literally just got to zero because you're untethered from the outcome.
I like it.
Yeah. List making is such a great thing, especially when you're starting a business. What is the worst case thing that could happen to you? The worst case thing that could happen to you is you lose your house, you move back in with your parents. Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Great. Save some money, start another adventure,
They probably miss you. Yeah.
Right. So if you're okay with that's the worst thing that could happen to me, the worst thing that could happen to me is I file bankruptcy. If you are okay with that outcome, then you can be equally as okay with the fact that you're going to become super successful, make a lot of people happy, including yourself. All right. So then we have to release these limiting beliefs. All right. Anytime we feel the big word is the F word, fear.
Right.
Okay.
Fear. Right.
As soon as we feel fear, every time I used to feel fear that I don't have any money, you know what I would do? I would go shopping. That was the fastest
the opposite.
way.
Yeah,
right.
That'll figure it out. Yeah.
That is the fastest way for me getting out of the fear that I don't have any money, is just pretending like I do. Even if I don't buy anything, is just getting out there and being or just going on a walk, getting out of this. I call these kind of things that come into our life that knock us out of alignment, cyclones. So
right.
When we feel this fear cyclone coming, you need to do what? Not go out there with the fire hose and try to fight it back. No, you need to seek shelter. You need to let that thing pass. My seeking shelter was I would go shopping. You got to figure out your cyclone escape plan. If there's something that shows up all the time in your life, come up with a cyclone escape plan, just like we have fire escape plans, just like we have earthquake escape plans, all of these things. Same thing. Yeah, once we can release those limiting beliefs, we can now really receive all this stuff above us that we created. We want to have this career. We want to be in alignment with this. Now we have nothing limiting us from keeping that, and then we can engage our power.
Excuses are gone. Right.
Yeah. Every day you put one foot in front of the other, and eventually you're going to get there. And we can't compare ourselves to anyone else because everybody's journey is different. And the thing is, if there ever comes a point in your life where you're stuck, where you're like, oh man, I just keep this same thing keeps happening over and over and over again. I keep hitting the same roadblock. Then you need to spend some time in that awareness entry point, and you need to figure out why. Because somewhere within your hemisphere of your body is a belief system that is making this roadblock keep reappearing. It's like it's literally programmed in your DNA. It's in your brain, right? So you've got to figure out where that's stored in your brain, and then start creating new neural pathways around it by creating new belief systems, new habits. So I really do believe that you can really have whatever you want, and if you're not getting it, it's because somewhere in your body, in your mind, there's an ounce of a sliver of doubt.
Right. You're not clear. You haven't gone through step one effectively.
Right. Or maybe that's just not your authentic path. Like maybe that is not what you are meant to do on this earth. And then you'll have that clarity, like, well, no wonder I'm not a big famous singer, because that's not what I'm supposed to, that's not why I'm on this earth. All right. Maybe I need to be performing for my own community. We have these moments of awareness, but you don't know until you go through all the steps.
Right. Like I wanted to be a major rock star. That was my whole goal in life. But then I found out that I can't sing. I can't play a guitar. I have no natural talent. I can't dance, and I'm not really good at writing. So that sort of ended that career. And here I am today, a host of a podcast.
There you go. And what a great podcast, and what a great path, because you realize your authentic true self is not a rock star.
As well, I think I still believe in the rock star mentality, but I'm just doesn't seem to be. I think it's a little late now. But let's talk about you also as a successful entrepreneur in your own right. Like, so maybe talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, and how you got to team building and what that's all about, and what kind of things do you do? Like, I think that's a very interesting story.
Yeah. Well, I got into team building because I've always had a passion for personal leadership and development. Ever since I was like so long as I could remember. I mean, I did the Tony Robbins fire walk when I was 13 years old.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. At 13.
I'll tell you a funny story. So, by the way, he's phenomenal. If you've never seen him live, he's infectious. And so here I am, this young, impressionable 13-year-old who had this much self-esteem. This is why my mom had me go to it. And he had everybody go through, we were like in this big meeting room, like a conference center or hotel. And he had everybody go around and talk to random strangers and tell them what your fears are. Now, what kind of fear does a 13-year-old have? Yeah. And it was hilarious because all these, I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of losing my job. I'm afraid of, getting divorced. All these like a grown adult real fears. And I was like, I'm afraid of dark mirrors because I played Bloody Mary when I was like a kid, and I was terrified that Bloody Mary was going to show up in the mirror. So I'm telling people. So that was my fear as a 13-year-old. And it was a real fear. But then we did the whole walk on the coals thing, and I did it. And so that was my touching point into like personal development. And then when I was a jack of all trades meeting planner, I would have companies ask me if I could do team building. And I'm like, yeah, I did this stuff in like church groups. Well, I could do this. And I started doing field games, and I realized I could make a lot of money doing this, and it's fun. So I decided when my sister and I were stranded on the lake, and we swam ourselves, 6 miles to shore in the middle of, it's a story. I said, if we get out of this alive, I'm moving to Las Vegas, and I'm going to start a team building company. And so I did.
So you did.
And I pretended like I was a team builder. I mean, success is 90% perception. So I put together sales documents. I just printed off my computer, made it look kind of fun. And I went to all the meeting planners in Las Vegas and hotels. And I said, hi, I'm an award-winning team building company. I mean, I won an award for doing events, but not team building. But I'm award-winning. That's all they need to know.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And I had good products, and I I stood behind my products. And so so they started hiring me, and then they actually liked my products, and then it just kind of grew from there.
And it just snowballed from there.
Yeah.
See, that's the classical, entrepreneurial journey. You started out doing a whole bunch of things. I call it complexity. Mm-hmm. You brought it back at some point to simplicity based on the input from potential clients and clients that you have. You have made a great product that solved a specific problem, and you grew the business from there. Like it's again a good story, a classic entrepreneur story, and something that everybody can learn from.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that I look back at my journey, and what did I have that other people didn't have that I was able to be successful, and I've always been a risk taker. And I've always believed that no matter what, my mantra is everything will always work out. And if you believe that no matter what, you're going to land on your feet, even if that means you're living in your parents' basement, all right, as you figure it out, you're still alive, you're breathing, you have food in your belly, you still got your ideas, you still have your drive. Everything can burn down. Think of all the people who lost their homes in Los Angeles recently. Their whole lives burned down, but they still have their body to create. If you've created it once, you can create it again. So that's looking back. That's what I've always had. I've always had this like fearless drive. I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? I lose everything.
I was going to say, the worst can happen and the best can happen. You can have everything. So I think it's worth the roll of the dice right there. It's not, it's not the downside. So finally, what's next for you? What's next on your horizon? Now you have this book, you got a successul business.
Yeah. So, the business, the business is I've got a great team. It took a while to find the right people, and to find the right people, I had to get out of my own way. Because I used to be very controlling about everything. I finally just had to say, you know what? I'm going to empower you to run things as you think you need to run it. And then I will course correct if we need to. And so I took this kind of hands-off managerial approach. And that was the best thing I ever did in my life. And in fact, I'm writing a new book called Zero Leadership. Because
I like
it's based on the principles of zero, but it's more this hands-off approach to just empowering your own people to buy into what you're creating, and they will run everything for you. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And then I have this book and that I'm promoting, and now I have a new book that I'm writing. So
fantastic. See, it's keeping busy.
There's always something to do, and if there's not something to do, then I guess I'm checked out, I'm done. But there's always something.
Or you just make something else to do. So
or I'll go travel to Europe. I don't know.
Well, there's always that. So now I do a little segment in my show. It's called the 3 rapid fire questions. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And when I ask each question, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
Oh,
so
boy.
The first question is, what is the best advice you have ever received?
From my friend Quinn. Be good at one thing and be an expert at it, and everybody will come to you for that. Expertise.
I love it. And again, that is, of all the things I've heard, that's the one that really changes the game. When you stop trying to be everything to everybody and try to be really good at something, that's all of it. What is the most impactful personal interaction, whether it's a client or somebody you're working with? What is your most memorable personal interaction that was so impactful that you will remember it forever?
Oh, now you're going to make me dive into the deep recesses of my mind. I probably would have to say my client in Las Vegas, the very first one that hired me to do team building, that was probably the validation I needed because at this point my life had fallen apart, and this was me rebuilding. And so it was that moment of light at the end of the tunnel where I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to be okay. So that was a really memorable interaction. And to this day, she's one of my very best friends. We don't even work together anymore because it just gets messy. We just want to go to Disney and play and travel. Like we went to, we traveled together for New Year's Eve. We do things that are fun. Right. So it's
and
really
look at the impact that obviously made, which is very positive. And finally, what's your favorite book?
Oh gosh!
Other than your own, we can't promote our own book. What's your favorite book?
I would have to say it's kind of dark, but I loved Lovely Bones.
I did too. Yeah, even like the movie.
Yeah, the movie, it was different. It was movie, but I that was one of those books that I bought at an airport. I was like, oh, this is before the internet on the planes, are good like it is now. I need something, so I bought this book and I read the whole book. Like I couldn't put it down. So I liked that book because I love mystery. I liked the creative. The author was so creative in writing it from this perspective of the person who passed on. So, is it an inspirational book? No, but it was just a very well written book.
But it's a good book, and that's all that counts. It's one of your favorite. So, thank you so much for being on the show, Chad. This was great. Good interaction. I've learned a lot. Certainly, the law of zero makes sense. And it's taking something, visualization, letting things go, starting at that base of zero, and you can only build up from them. I think it's fantastic. So, Chad, how would people find your book? If they wanted to read it, where's the best place to get it?
So it's available pretty much at any book retailer. They can order it for you. So you go down to your local bookstore. They can get it in. Online, you can get it pretty much any online book retailer. You can go to my website, lawofzerobook.com, and it has links to a lot of different places where you can buy the book. And the audiobook is available come March 27th, 2025.
All right. So it's coming out. So thank you so much, Chad Michael Hardy. He's an entrepreneur and author of Law of Zero, The Journey to Awakening Your Authentic Self, Unlocking Your Infinite Power, and Taking Control of Your Life. This was a great show. Thank you.
Thank you.